Welcome to the Two Man Advantage Podcast. I'm Darrin and Carlo, along with your host, Kevin McShann joins us. And Kevin, how are you?
I'm good, Darrin. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Big sports weekend, especially for the NBA had their draft on Thursday. And, of course, the granddaddy of them all, the NHL, had their draft on Friday. The Leafs decided to go with a lot of smaller players than I've seen in recent years. We'll have our Leafs insider and YouTube host Steve Dangle to come on and talk with us a little bit. But Kevin, your first reactions to the Leafs going a little bit smaller in this draft?
Well, Mike Babcock was with the Red Wings for 10 seasons, and he tended to favor smaller, quicker players, but hopefully for the Leafs' sake, this draft can act as a springboard for their rebuilding project.
Absolutely. It looks forward to that, and to get our true fans' opinions and true professionals' opinions on it. We have with us online is the host of the Steve Dangle podcast. I believe is that Panagos Steve Dangle Podcast, correct?
Panagos Pizza, Steve Dangle Podcast.
Excellent. Steve Dangle, thank you for joining us on the Two Man Advantage Podcast.
For sure. Thanks for having me on.
Great. So, Steve, give us your first reactions to the Leafs. They pick at 4, and they select Mitch Marner from the London Knights.
Well, I was pretty happy about that. You know, all signs seem to point towards him. They brought in Mark Hunter, so that was your first clue. Mm-hmm. You know, with dealing with him with the London Knights, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go for him. All right, so then they bring in Lindsey Hofford, who is apparently, pretty much directly responsible for Marner's development with the Knights and stuff like that. So this guy looks like he's going to be a really good player. You know, I find it interesting that they say he's going to play center at the NHL level. But again, the fact that Hofford is there, the fact that Hunter is there, I don't think they would draft him and then put him in a position where they didn't think he was comfortable. So, even if he played on the wing in London, they seem to know what they're getting with him. So,
absolutely.
Hey, here's to a Leaf player that hopefully won't stink.
That's right. And here's to a Leaf draft pick that Don Cherry will approve of.
Absolutely.
Good old Canadian boy.
For sure, you got a good old Canadian boy. His name's Mitch Marner. Got the double M there. It's an easy name to say. I like him.
Excellent. The Leafs, they had a pick. They were supposed to pick 24th. They traded down, and then they traded down again. Did you really think that they were going to select at 24, or did you have a feeling that, I know Shanahan and Hunter, their goal was to give the GM, or I'm sorry, Mark Hunter, more picks? Were you surprised at all that they traded down twice?
I was, to be totally honest. What I talked about on my podcast was I really thought the Leafs were going to pick 3, maybe as many as 4 times in the first round, and that would have to do with trades. And, that sounds crazy, and then you look at what actually happened, and, the Bruins picked 3 straight guys, 13, 14, 15. So,
exactly.
It is possible to pull something like that off. The Leafs just went a totally different direction. Mm-hmm. And what made me feel more comfortable about it, because I really thought they were going to pick someone at 23. All right, they didn't. And I really thought they were going to pick someone in 29, and then they didn't. What really made me feel comfortable about it was how deliberate it seemed. They definitely seemed like they had a plan. And I'd be far more concerned if they use those picks for players that most people are like, oh, why would they go after them? But pretty much every guy the Leafs went after, everyone seemed to be happy with, to the point where we seemed spoiled. The Leafs went after one guy, I believe it was Andrew Nielsen. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, oh, no, he definitely shouldn't have gone for that guy. All right, well, you're picking on him for one guy that the Leafs picked in the 3rd round. Meanwhile, they have potentially their own Datsuk with Novostelev in the 7th round. So all I know is I'm happy with how they did in this year's draft, and I can't wait until they draft the next Wayne Gretzky in next year's draft with the pick they got for Ole Jokinen. That's all I want in the world.
Just to clarify, what round was that? A first round that they got for Ole, or is this going to be? No,
I think it was like a sixth.
Oh, sixth round. Well, hey, if you can find Henrik Zetterberg and Pavel Datsyuk in the sixth round, the Leafs can find the next Wayne Gretzky, or at least Jamie Benn. Why not?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So, Steve, going into the second round, they picked up Travis McDermott, played in Erie with Connor McDavid and Dylan Strome. I watched your video, I should say, this morning, and you said that you would want to have a player who played with those superstar caliber players in the minors than someone who just played with someone who's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of prevailing narratives, and one of them is always, this player was propped up by this guy. And, it didn't really seem to hurt Dylan Strome, did it?
No.
But ever since I was younger, I've always, wanted to take the popular thing and then deliberately try to go against it to see if I can find something else. And the logic I'm kind of seeing here with Dermott is, well, okay, so he played with amazing players. Why wouldn't you want a player who played with amazing players? Seems to me that would only help his development. I mean, you take into account, okay, this guy's numbers may be a bit inflated, but if this guy makes the transition, makes the jump to professional hockey in 2 years, which we hope he will, maybe even sooner, you want someone who has experience feeding the puck to a Dylan Strome or Connor McDavid and not some plug. Wouldn't it be great if the Leafs, found some guys of that caliber for Dermott to play with once he gets there?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe Nylander or Marner are his McDavid and Strome. Who knows? Exactly.
Which brings up an interesting point. You have Nylander already there, and now you add Marner, and Travis Dermott here. Now, if you're Mike Babcock, do you think let's let these players season for another year, let us tank again next year and get some more quality draft picks, get some more quality players, hopefully trade Dion Phaneuf and Phil Kessel by then? Or is it let's see what they got and let's throw them out there now?
You mentioned tanking there, and I'm not necessarily against it.
Right.
If the Leafs do quote unquote tank next year, I don't think they'll go the Buffalo Sabres route, which is literally ice an AHL team, and disgrace their fans. I think they're going to go the Oilers route, which is sucking the old-fashioned way by just being bad. But one sign that has been interesting so far, and I'll get to the development in a second, is the fact that they didn't trade a single roster player. That was amazing to me.
Exactly.
After all this hype going into the draft, they're going to trade this guy, that guy, get this pick, that pick. They didn't trade a single person. So, but to me, that's says more about patience rather than okay, we need to get a first round pick. No. Well, that's the Leafs trading from a position of weakness. Why not wait until after free agency or maybe the trade deadline when teams are desperate and they do want a player of a certain caliber? Mm-hmm. And then try to fleece them. But in terms of development, I think what's going to happen is, you're almost certainly going to play your full term in junior, and then if you're a prospect in the Leafs organization, then you're going to hit the American Hockey League, and odds are you're not going to make the team right away. You're going to have to do what guys like Gustav Nyquist and Thomas Tatar and Thomas Yurcho and so many Red Wings had to do, which was play a few games at a time, hopefully play well, and maybe get your shot. And if you want to stick, you have to do something just extraordinary, like what Nyquist did, who 30 goals in like a 55-game season, something like that. Yeah. So it's going to be painful, but hopefully it'll be worth it.
That's I totally agree with you there on that one, Steve. And Steve, let me just put up, because we're from Windsor here. We're right across the border from Detroit, so we're very familiar with Mike Babcock. You obviously are, I believe you're an Oshawa Generals fan. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, I used to work for the Mississauga Steelheads, and then after I moved out to Oshawa, I became a trader, I guess.
Exactly. So when it comes to that, obviously Oshawa had a tremendous last season. They won the Memorial Cup. DJ Smith, former head coach of Oshawa, is now assistant to Mike Babcock in Toronto. Good move or bad move when it comes to promoting him to the hockey mecca that is Toronto?
Well, I mean, people often talk about players. Oh, they're just a winner. They just know how to win.
Right.
And if that's true of players, it's probably more true, more accurate of coaches. And I'm sure living out in Windsor, DJ Smith has had a really good time winning.
Yeah.
And then he had an even better time winning with the Generals, who, were not, as I'm sure you saw, they were not the fanciest team by any means, and didn't necessarily have the biggest names. They were shutting down the biggest names, though.
Right.
So I think this whole getting guys who play junior or coaching junior, going the OHL route, and I think that's all great. And one thing that often gets talked about is players who are from the GTA and they grew up Leaf fans and they know the zoo, the jungle they're about to walk into. Well, I mean, every OHL guy knows exactly what they're getting themselves into. So I don't think Toronto's going to contain any surprises for DJ Smith.
Right. Excellent point there, Steve. When he comes down to it, it's just a matter of does he and Babcock are on the same page. I know Babcock is that type A personality where if something's not right, he'll let you know. And I think DJ's the same way. So I think those two will mesh together pretty well. Steve, so just so we're wrapping this up, where can people find you and read your stuff and watch your video blogs? Where can they find you? I know that they can find you on YouTube, but where else can they find you?
Yeah, on YouTube at Steve Dangle, all one word. The Steve Dangle Podcast, which is on SoundCloud and iTunes, and there's some RSS feeds you can get it with as well. On Twitter at Steve_Dangle, and if you Google the Daily Dangle on sportsnet.ca, that's my blog on sportsnet.ca.
Excellent. So, quick question: Will we be seeing a Free Agent Day, Canada Day / new Steve Dangle video?
Almost certainly.
All right, we look forward to it. Steve, once again, thank you for joining us on Two Man Advantage, and we wish you all the best.
All right, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thank you.